A boring presentation is like a monotone lecture. No one really wants to be there and probably sleeping through it. Let's go over the common design mistakes that I see when it comes to presentations and how you can avoid them. So I have thrown together a sample presentation for us to walk through together so that I can show you what these mistakes look like and also show you how to avoid them. Please don't judge the content because it's just an example that I put together really roughly. So for all you visual learners out there, we'll go through this presentation together and fix all of the mistakes while sharing all of my best tips, tricks, and practices. So the first mistake I see is no branding. If you were to see this presentation, there's nothing telling you who made it. There's almost nothing on it to help identify it is their presentation, whoever this is, right? Your branding should be everywhere. We talked a little bit about brand consistency in another video I made about creating your own Canva templates. You can find that video, I'll link it above. And guess what, guys? The same rule applies here. Your colors, your fonts, your brand images, your logos, whatever it is that you use to identify your brand as your brand, use it. Use them, use them, use them until you're sick of them, and then keep using them. The second mistake I see is too much text or too little text. So a presentation is a tool to help keep your audience's attention while also highlighting the key points. You don't need your entire presentation scripted out on the slides, just the key points. On the flip side, your slides need to have enough information on them that if somebody happens to, daydream for a few seconds and then tune back in, that there's enough information on there to provide them with a frame of reference so that they can catch back up quickly. Mistake number 3 is no design. You know those presentations where there's just nothing but words on the page, maybe the random picture here or there, but there's really nothing visually drawing us in, right? It's just kind of boring. This is kind of the same thing like when you're in school and you have that one teacher that's very passionate and makes learning fun, but then you have the other teacher who's just very monotone, boring lecture. Well, a boring presentation is like a boring, monotone lecture. No one really wants to be there and probably sleeping through it. Let's be honest. While those presentations might get the job done, we're here to get the job done well. So my recommendation is to create at least 3 different slide layouts or designs so that there is some variety from slide to slide. So mistake number 4 I see is no movement. This is one that I see so much and it's one of my pet peeves. So if I ever sit through one of your presentations, there better be some movement. No matter what program you use, there are probably tools to help you incorporate movement and motion into your slides. So whether that's a transition or an animation from how the text comes in, like maybe it flies in or fades in or something other than just page, 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 page. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. There are simple options that you can do that really transforms the slide from boring to, captivating. We are looking for that sweet spot between some movement and no movement. The final mistake I see is inconsistent designs. So I already mentioned that you need to have some sort of design, but you also want that design to be consistent from page to page. You don't want to confuse your audience where one page is very like boho style and then the other page is very corporate, right? Those things don't really go together. So let's make sure that from page to page, everything is kind of consistent. You want to keep the same overall style in one presentation, but have variety from page to page within that style. So now let's jump into our presentation. So let me show you this presentation. And again, don't judge the content because I literally just threw this together and threw some information in there with the help of ChatGPT. So if you would like a video about AI and how to use it with Canva and how to use Canva's AI, please let me know down below because I can make that happen. So let's go hands-on with our sample presentation in Canva to fix these mistakes and create a better presentation. Here is our sample presentation. I will just present it really quickly so that you can see what it looks like and then we can compare it at the end to our new presentation. So as you can see, it's just very boring, very plain and basic. Not a lot of movement. Some pages have too much text, some pages don't have enough. And some just look really plain and boring. Some are overwhelming. And that's all that we have for our example. Before we start fixing this presentation, we need to know some important information, like who the presentation is for and what their brand style is and all of these sorts of things, because we can't very well make it look like their brand if we don't know what their brand is. So for the sake of this video, I have a sample brand that I have thrown together. I've just kind of put it all on this slide at the end. So here we have their logo. This is the color palette that this imaginary brand, uses. These are their fonts and kind of like the hierarchy. So titles and headings will be this font. This is like subheadings and any body text. They normally use this. Here are some brand images, and then these are just kind of brand like style. They may like to use kind of this like sketchy imagery, and they use checkerboard throughout their brand all over online. And I just want to give a quick disclaimer. There is so much more to brand strategy than what you're looking at right now. So if you're looking for branding and brand strategy, don't think that, all you have to have is a color palette and some fonts. Like, there's so much more to it. But for the sake of this video, this is all that we really need to know right now. Okay, so now that we know our brand, let's go through and start incorporating some of their branding elements into the presentation, as well as creating better designs and tackling all of those mistakes that we went over just a minute ago. Just a quick note, we're not going for perfection here, we're just going for better. We're gonna just try and use some of the basics that we have learned maybe from the last video. And that's another little disclaimer. I am gonna go through this part just a little bit quickly. So if it's a little too fast for you or you get totally lost, then I would highly recommend watching my last video, which was about presentation basics. So this is our title screen, and already we can see a lot of the mistakes that we have. First is we have no branding, right? There's just a title and a picture, no branding. As far as mistake number 2, which is too much or too little text, I think that this is totally fine. This is a title page. We don't need a lot of text. The only thing that you may want to add is like a presenter's name, or maybe a company name or a date or something like that. But other than that, I think as far as mistake number 2 goes, we're good here. Mistake number 3 is lack of design. There's not really much of a design here. Mistake number 4, no movement. Mistake number 5 was inconsistent design. Since this is our first page, we're gonna set the precedent for what the design style is. And so let's get into it. Let's see what we can do to start fixing this. So the first thing we're gonna do is we are going to change the font to our brand font, okay? And then the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add a logo. You don't have to have a logo on your presentations, but that is what I chose to do for this one. All right, and then I'm gonna add a frame, and we're just gonna pop this little cookie picture in there. And then I added 2 boxes. I added a black box in the back, and then I added a kind of off-white tan kind of color box to the front. And I just stacked those on top of each other. Then I've included the green checkerboard that was part of the brand's elements. I just kind of set the transparency down a little bit so it wasn't so bold. It was a square, so I just duplicated it to fill in the rest of the space. And then lastly, I just added a little picture element just to kind of balance it out. And so then finally, I am just going to add an effect to the text just to bring just a little bit more style into this design. And then I've added some motion, and so then our final slide for our title slide is this. Okay, so that definitely looks better. Is it perfect? No, it could definitely still be improved on. But as I mentioned a while ago, we're not going for perfect, we're just going for better, right? So we're just looking out for those 5 mistakes and ways that we can fix them. Okay, so let's go to our next slide. So here we go. Again, let's run through our 5 mistakes. There is no branding. There is way too much text. Mistake number 3, there's really not a lot of design on this page. Mistake number 4, there is absolutely no movement. And then 5, we just want to keep in mind that we want whatever we design this slide to look like, we want it to kind of match the title slide. So let's see what we can do. So first, let's change our fonts. So we've changed the title and the body to our brand fonts. And then we're going to take out a lot of that text. So I have cut it down to the main points. And remember, I said your slides just really need to highlight the main points. And then when you're presenting, you can expound upon them. Okay, and then you may not have really been able to tell there, but I did change the background to kind of a light tan color. I think it's actually a gradient. And then we have moved the text around. Now we're starting to build kind of the design layout of this slide. So we have moved the text around. And then I added these sketchy like boxes around our key points and have made them bigger. But now, as you can see, our title is kind of getting lost because it's no longer the biggest thing on the page. So to fix that, I'm just gonna add this little border type of thing to kind of help the title stand out separately from the rest of the page. And then I'm just gonna add that green checkerboard, just a little line at the top, just to kind of tie that in. And then I just added a little cookie element here just to kind of help make it a little more fun and not just so boring with text, okay? And so now we're gonna add the motion, and this is what our final slide looks like. All right. So it's looking better. Again, this may not be the final design that I personally would go with, but it's definitely better than what it was before. And I think, you know, this is totally fine. But anyway, so let's move on. So this is our third slide, I guess. So again, no branding, too little text, not really much of a design. There is no movement. And then when we design it, we just want to keep in mind the other styles that we have used and make sure that it kind of all ties in together. So first we're going to use our brand font. And then we are going to add a frame on the entire right side. And we're just going to pop that picture into that frame. And then we're gonna start designing the slide a little bit more. So I've moved the title over to one side, and then I've added some text, right? So at first we had no text. So now we've added some key talking points about packaging and presentation. So let's keep going. And then I have added some boxes just to kind of help bring attention and separate those and some visual interest as well. And then I have added some numbers as well. And then to match the green numbers, we are changing the title to green. And then we have also added a text effect, which gives it this kind of shadow and just kind of gives a little dimension, which helps keep the design from looking too flat. Okay, and so then lastly, I'm just gonna add some little elements, some little like sketch hand-drawn looking elements, because that is what we have used on our other pages, and it was also kind of part of our brand style. So I have added those. And then the very last thing is the motion. So let's see what our final slide looks like with some animations and a transition. See, there we go. All right, looks much better than what we had before. So let's keep going to our next slide. Again, pretty much all the same mistakes. No branding. As far as text goes, that one's actually fine. I think it doesn't have too much and it doesn't have too little. I think it's fine. It has no design really, so we're gonna fix that. And then of course, movement, and when we're designing, we just want to make sure that it is consistent with the other designs that we've done. So you may have guessed, we're gonna change the fonts to our brand fonts. And then we're gonna start designing the page. We have moved our points to different locations on the page. We're just gonna add this green block up at the top. Since we added that green bar, I wanted to add the text color to white, and then I also did a text effect to add the shadow behind it, just to kind of lift it off the page a little bit and bring a little bit more attention to it. And then we're gonna add these tan circles. with some little pictures in it. I did my best to try and find elements that would go along with our brand. I think that this is probably the best that we can do with that. And then I added a shadow behind those circles just to help bring them off the page a little bit as well. And I think that this page turned out, you know, pretty good. So now we're just gonna add some motion. Let's see what our final slide looks like. Okay, there we go. All right, and let's move on to the next one. So this one has a lot of mistakes as well. Anytime you're using graphs and charts, you have to be very, very careful not to be overwhelming. You have to remember that your audience has no context for whatever graph or chart that you're throwing at them. They've never seen it before, and suddenly there's this picture and they're having to figure out what these numbers mean, what these bars mean, what this line over here means. Like, there's so much going on in charts and graphs that you want to make it as easy as possible so that they don't just zone out. I would recommend breaking this all up, put one graph on a page, and I would even possibly break it down further where only a little bit of it shows up at a time so that you can walk through what this shows up. So maybe you show a blank graph at first, and then you have the different categories come up, and then you have maybe one thing come in at a time. So like maybe the marketing bars show up first, and then the ingredients, and then the packaging. And that's a lot easier to digest as an audience than an entire graph all at once. But if you're gonna do an entire graph all at once, try and make it as simple as possible. And I have added a more specific title. So the other title was scaling and growth or something like that. I have added a more specific title specific to this particular graph just to kind of help the audience to tie it in and figure out what they're looking at. Okay. And then I added this gray, which one is one of the brand colors as well. I've added that kind of onto the left side of the page, and I have changed the text to white, and again I have put that shadow text effect kind of behind it to kind of lift it off the page a little bit. And then I wanted that was very like structured and stiff, and I felt like this brand that we have made up, this imaginary brand that we have been working with, I feel like they're a little more with the sketchy style elements. They're a little more casual. They don't need to be as like stiff. So I've added this white zigzag line to kind of give the illusion that the gray is a zigzag. And then I have added some little elements just to kind of tie it in and to help keep this page from being entirely boring with just a graph. So, and then of course we want to add some motion and a transition, and that is our final slide. Okay, and so we will go through our presentation one more time. This is our final presentation. So we have movement, we have branding, we have consistency, we have designs, we have visual interest. Like, this is so much more interesting and fun to look at rather than that other one, which was just very boring and lacking. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Brittany, and I create videos teaching you how to step away from the cookie cutter templates that everyone else is using so that you can stand out from the crowd with designs that are unique to you and your business. Be sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one. Thank you again, and I'll see you soon.